An investigative report by the New York Times has painted a striking portrait of optics taking precedence over policy at a pivotal moment for Ukraine, suggesting that appearances and media management overshadowed serious strategic decision-making when the stakes were at their highest. According to this account, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth allegedly donned makeup ahead of a crucial February meeting with a visiting Ukrainian team, treating the encounter almost like a television appearance even as Kyiv's representatives arrived seeking clarity and concrete commitments on weapons and support. The report further claimed that Hegseth effectively sidestepped substantive engagement with his Ukrainian counterpart, keeping the conversation shallow and perfunctory while avoiding the kind of deep policy discussion and hard questions that the situation on the battlefield urgently demanded. During a subsequent trip to Europe, Hegseth reportedly took what had been planned as a long and detailed meeting with Ukraine's defense minister and reduced it to a brief stand-up interaction, turning what could have been a robust strategy session into a hurried, almost ceremonial exchange. One U.S. official recalled that in these moments he seemed fixated on his appearance, even stopping to powder his nose, while around him aides and staff worked intensely on complex logistics, battlefield needs, and diplomatic sensitivities that required his full attention. When Hegseth was asked whether U.S. weapons deliveries would continue flowing to Ukraine, he reportedly offered no clear verbal assurance and instead only shook his head in a non-committal way, leaving Ukrainian officials confused and anxious about whether Washington's support might soon be scaled back. According to the Times, Hegseth began his tenure at the Pentagon as something of a blank slate on Russia and Ukraine, arriving without deeply formed views on the war or a well-developed strategic framework for how the United States should confront Moscow's aggression. A former Pentagon official said he lacked firm views of his own but leaned heavily on a tight circle of civilian advisors, effectively outsourcing key elements of U.S. policy toward Kyiv to staffers whose ideological preferences quickly began to shape the department's posture. By the fourth day of his time in office, those advisors were already arguing for an immediate pivot away from existing commitments to Ukraine, pressing for a rapid reorientation of U.S. priorities that would curb ongoing support and redirect attention elsewhere. A key figure in this camp, strategist Elbridge Colby, argued that finite American resources should be shifted toward the Pacific, insisting that preparing for a potential confrontation with China had to take precedence over sustaining large-scale aid to Kyiv. His close ally and disciple, Dan Caldwell, went even further by urging a pause on certain munitions earmarked for Ukraine and pushing to withhold billions in unspent funds for Kyiv, moves that would significantly constrict the flow of U.S. assistance at a critical stage of the war.